All right. Welcome to the Bread and Butter podcast. I'm your host, Dylan Kowalik. Today, we're going to explore the essential ingredients of Web3 communication for developers. We're going to be discussing how to enhance smart contracts with Web3 communication and the significance of security and marketing and the role of SocialFi and wallets when implementing EIP 4337. It's going to be really interesting. We're also going to be covering some mutual questions about on-chain communications and really its overall impact on Web3 efficiency. And in addition to this, we're going to be trying to push the limits with thought-provoking questions about cross-chain communication, zero-knowledge computational services, and really the impact of DAO governance on building a protocol. So finally, what we're going to do is dive right into this. We're met today with Notifi, who is targeting Web2 applications and bringing them to Web3 through communication alone and its role in the decentralized social media landscape. And we're also targeting with push notifications, who's doing something slightly similar but in a different flavor. That's the whole point of Bread and Butter. We have two projects that are similar in taste but different in design. So hello and thank you and welcome everybody. Let's explore Bread and Butter with Web3 communications. So to start off, guys, can you please just quickly introduce yourself? We have Paul, the CEO of Notifi, on our left, and we have Harsh, the founder and project lead of Push Notifications, which was also recently known as EPNS. So, Paul, if you can quickly introduce yourself to the audience and the BNB developers, we'd love to hear it.
Sure. Thanks for having me. Just a quick background about myself. Mostly been in Web2 for a very long time. Had the luxury or the fortunate luck of being inside product. Built out products for AWS, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, and spent a lot of time in Southeast Asia launching payments as a service for a company called Grab. So have been a little bit familiar with kind of the entrepreneurship background, but mostly in the last couple of months. We started this company about last year, and we're aiming to bridge the gap between developer communications and consumer communications for the embetterment of Web3 as a whole. So that's a little bit about myself.
Solid. And Harsh, what about yourself?
Awesome. So GM everyone, no matter where you are, it's GM in crypto, right? I'm Harsh, project lead and founder at Push. Just a slight change, not push notifications, just push.org. A little bit about myself. So I have a decade worth of entrepreneurship experience, mostly in mobile apps and games and in the communication sector, which was probably one of the reasons we started Push or EPNS back in 2020. Idea was to build a native Web3 communication layer, which is decentralized and permissionless. TLDR, Push is essentially a decentralized communication protocol that enables any sort of communication, whether it's notification, whether it's chat, whether it's on-chain or off-chain, whether it's coming from a DApp, a smart contract, a protocol, or a backend directly to the wallet address of the user. This is done in a secure, encrypted, and yet in an open network sort of a way. The idea is that crypto wallets or dApps can essentially integrate a network and can show these communications like notifications or chat or whatever. It started back in 2020. The thesis for this was that Web3 wallet addresses are Web3 usernames, and there needs to be a direct relay point for them. And from then to now, we have powered over 30 million notifications to over 80,000 subscribers. We power notifications for Lens, Aave, Polygon, Gitcoin, Decentraland, etc. And to around 600 or 700 projects. And we're very excited to be here.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And I think what both of you guys are working on is super cool and is super exciting. And I think there's just some misconceptions on what exactly the utility of what it is that you're actually providing. If I flip over to my screen, here I see that, on Notifi's lend angle, it's like you come from like this cloud background with dev communications reaching dev comms to the consumer. And on the other end, we're seeing that there's like this need for addressing that all addresses are actual usernames, where then wallets have their network communications going between end consumer to end consumer. And we just really want to know what this could do and to enable developers to really build better protocols. So I'd like to ask both of you some general roundabout questions to see what your thoughts and flavor is on the industry and how you think we can do a better job at building better applications. Because we were just in ETH Denver, we were talking about some crazy stuff and really kind of thinking outside of the box, and really to taking the whole box and just running with it, because you guys are really making the ability to use these applications in a much more fair, free, and open manner, which I think is really the crux and the hard point of where we are at today, especially with games and things like this. So I want to get your opinions, guys. Anyone is free to answer this, but we can go in any order that you'd like. My first question is, how do you think we can enable developers to communicate with their community directly? I've seen that there's, Discord bots. I've seen that there's Telegram bots, but now you're saying, hey, let's do this with the wallet. Why do you think this enables a community to better communicate between the development team and their communities?
So, I think in the past couple of years of building like core infrastructure, I think we've been kind of leapfrogging in terms of like what we need to build out to better enhance the next cycle of adoption. And a lot of the focus has been always on like the core infrastructure moats, like, similar to like Web2. Web2 focused a lot on like compute, right? And in this side, like, RPCs, node infrastructure, those are all like the basic building blocks. But I think as the cycles have been kind of shortened a little bit, I think Web3 has adopted different tools from the Web2 world, such as Telegram and Discord, and we've been using it as kind of like a band-aid for the time being. And I think we haven't really seen anything native or anything that can kind of bring us to the next level until like in the last couple of years, right? And like only in terms of like, I think Harsh, you guys started 3 years ago. In 2020, right? Yeah. So like it's relatively new compared to the rest of the blockchain, right? So I think it's very similar to kind of Web 2. Like messaging protocols, communication protocols didn't really come out until like after core infrastructure was built out. And there was, I think in AWS, like SNS came out like 7 years after EC2. So I think we're right at the crux of kind of where we are looking into reinvesting some of the the resources, like my projects, Harsh's projects, builders, to focus on these additional next layer services. And I think that's kind of like where we see the push and pull of adoption, right? The first wave, everyone kind of flurriedly like came into the space, built out, kind of like, sticks and stones. And, we were able to kind of go only so fast until we ever have to kind of address some of the pain points. And I think that's kind of where we are from like a rubber band standpoint, is that we're coming back into fixing a lot of the primitives that we should have probably built out in the early stages. But we're only doing it now because we're hitting a cap, right? So communication, messaging, notifications, just basically like more native experiences for blockchain are coming. And I think dependencies around like Web 2 tools that were never made or built for communications in Web 3 are starting to hit like the apex of their problems or their misfits.
I mean, just think about it. Like, there's a reason why we are on Discord. So Discord has a username, and we are talking in Discord ecosystem with their username. And the same thing goes with Telegram or Twitter. Like, no one says on Twitter that, hey, email me all the things and try to guess my Twitter username, and you can tap into Twitter ecosystem. So in a way, like Paul is really right. Basically, this is a circle. Like, innovations, they will never happen all at once. What happens is, like, you get to a point in innovation where new problem surfaces and the technology kind of goes to full circle, wherein you solve or provide solutions to those pain points. For example, Infura being centralized was not a pain point before recently. Now people want a decentralized JSON RPC, and Infura in itself is working for that. So it basically builds on this analogy. Like, just think about it. Like Twitter ecosystem, Twitter usernames, Telegram ecosystem, Telegram usernames. By that very same analogy, like if you are basically interacting in Web3, you are a EOA or a smart contract, which means that you are a wallet address, give or take. And when you are a wallet address and you are interacting with a smart contract or or any service like SocialFi or whatever, uh, it makes so much sense that this interaction or this communication is delivered directly to your wallet, at least for the first part. Like after that, you can basically go several other ways, and we basically support that as well. Like in case a protocol wants to do that, but in essence, like your first information should be tied to your wallet address. Like Twitter, when you're sending a DM, Twitter will basically tie that to your Twitter username, and then Twitter will send an email to you in case you want that. And this is the idea of communication overall. Like in 2009, also when notifications and communication, which was built on top of it, was invented for Web 2, it was the same thing. Like you basically enable apps to be more personalized. You help the user out by making sure that the username that is doing something, they are getting directly informed. And that is the biggest change over here. Like think about social fi also. Like you cannot have social until you can tell those username what is happening, right? Or you can basically chat with them or do all sort of stuff with them. And this can be basically expanded to almost everything, like DeFi, governance, NFT, you name it. Like communication needs to be the endpoint in any ecosystem, including Web3.
So that's a really, really strong point, because I think where we start seeing this nice integration between like DeFi, gaming, and even like typical financial services, governance, and so on, has to have a level of, hey, this thing is happening right now. It's time to vote, because it could be your money is on the line, or your assets are on the line, or big decisions that have something to do with potential governance to be transitioned over from one party to another party. It can be anything where communications need to just be there so that apps have more of this personal experience, and this information has to go directly to the wallet. And there hadn't been a way before this. Usually I was just using Discord or just using Twitter, and I see how there was a lot of these pain points along the way, such as like just not the available RPC endpoints. So you guys have actually put your heads together and to actually solve a lot of these problems. So I think this is a good question to ask now is, what do you believe are some of the best ways that we can start building our smart contracts for DeFi or for new DAOs with Web3 communication in mind? How would you tell a DeFi or a DAO builder what they should do to kind of prepare so that they have more of this personal experience? Paul, what's your opinion on that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think pretty simply put, like, be customer obsessed, and kind of dip into kind of the Web 2 expectations that most of your user base is going to expect. I think that's one of the big like takeaways from at least the last couple of years, is that a lot of DeFi like projects have just assumed that Discord and Telegram and Twitter are just kind of the de facto tools and means that they're going to leverage. And this could just be because like convenience, or the fact that they didn't want to invest too much into development. But I think going forward, if you're going to go unlock the next 100 million billion users, you have to kind of work backwards and bring to the table what people expect, which is a native experience for communication, interacting with your project, right? Your application, right? I think, and this is kind of controversial, but I think Web3 projects and Web3 builders, applications are the same as kind of Web2 applications. You have to build in the same kind of expectations that your users are going to expect. Just because we're kind of born in Web3 right? And we have certain things that we're kind of comforted to just leverage immediately. Doesn't mean that the next 99% of people will have that same expertise, right? So I think calibrating it to kind of like this is what I usually tell folks is that if your mom and your sister or your brother can't really use the product that you're building, then you either are focusing on onboarding existing users, right? Or you're focusing on onboarding the next new wave of users, right? And it's okay to be on either camp, right? But I think it's important to be specific about how you're segmenting your user base and building accordingly.
Yeah, so I mean, so this is how I feel like Web3 basically, Web3 basically, or Web3 protocols, they basically confused innovation and adoption, which are really two different things. Like you innovate so that people can adopt, but that doesn't mean like you will get the billion users. Like when we are talking about billion users, and I speak about it a lot, this is not a million devs. So they will like million devs, or devs are easy or not easy. Devs like to solve a problem or a puzzle, so they would like to dig around. But when you're talking about users, yeah, users can be anyone, and users, they don't have time. Like I cannot be expected to go and dig around a protocol for 5, 6 hours. I don't have that much time, and I still remember like the first time I got onboarded on Web3. It was at least 6 hours, and one interaction with one protocol was actually 10 actions. Install MetaMask, write down the seed, do KYC, AML, go to exchange, do on-off ramp, then go to the protocol, but then realize, it needs a token, so then learn about Uniswap. And I like that as a developer. But as a user, what Web2 has cracked is the ability to make users' life easier. Like we get up and we have all sort of information available. Like even WhatsApp messages, we have notifications about them. Even social thing, we have all the messages, like what likes we receive, what tweets we reply to, and so on. Even banking, they will tell us like, your loan is about to be liquidated, or I hope not, but if you have taken a mortgage, it's about to expire, or your credit is due. And all these things are derived on communication or making the lives of the user very easy. And that is what developer needs to do when they are building the protocol. Like the best way to adoption is to provide users with all the necessary information and even re-engage them, which is something Web3 protocols are not able to do. And that is what Web3 communication unlocks. Now, the way to unlock it, like, of course, you need a communication middleware, but you need this communication middleware to be essentially able to support everything like the developer wants, so that the life of or the experience of them, like DevX, as well as the experience that they want to provide to UX or users, they all can be accounted for. And that is what I think the communication sector is doing for Web3. And that is why I believe like billion users of Web3 will be driven by
Wow.
communication.
So this is really interesting because I see on both sides of the spectrum that we as a developer might not necessarily be thinking like a businessman, but it's so important that we have to be bringing these native experiences to users, and really all of the same expectations from what industry we were coming from into this new industry has to still kind of be there. And our job is to not really confuse innovation with adoption. We are doing our best to innovate better technologies and improve these technologies so that we are on our way towards greater adoption. Because if we focus on making people's lives easier, that in and of itself will allow us to adopt this technology much more, feasibly, I would say. And you're right, by providing more information, we can especially do this. But, I think my bigger question is, do you really think that this is going to open up a new context for how, let's say, marketing agencies are supposed to network with one another? Do you see Web3 communications getting into the middle of how we as a network grow our presence amongst, in physical and in digital realms? Do you see this having an actual effect on how we network with one another? And do you see this improving? And if so, do you have any examples where you've seen Web3 communication improve the way that we have networked, or the way that we have communicated different ideas or things that we have promoted? In your experience, what have you seen Web3 communication do that has improved people's lives?
Harsh, you want to take that one first? I've been doing the. I've been going for
Sure, sure. Uh, Love to. So yeah, interesting. So I mean, just think about what is marketing. Marketing is essentially telling users about your product, or telling users that a new feature is available, or re-engaging the users and making sure that you can sell them more of the features or products that they like, right? Uh, these three things combined is essentially marketing. Now, how Web3 communication enables that? Let's say you are a protocol, right? You are a DAO protocol, or you are a DeFi protocol, and you basically launched a V4. Like, let's say Uniswap went from V3 to V4. Now, Uniswap has this ability to tell all their wallet users that, hey, V4 is there with these new features, and it will basically help in migrating people from V3 to V4 really, really fast. So that is one way. The other thing is, like, let's say Lens comes out with new features, right? Creator economy. Creator economy only works well if you are able to tell users that, hey, your content got distributed, or someone collected your content, or your replies were done, or you got a really good amount of likes. That is basically re-engaging. So that is again something that Web3 communication really solves very well. And then it comes to direct product, like if you're in DeFi, so the loan that is getting liquidated, before you get that liquidation, if you have a communication wherein people are saying that, hey, your loan is about to be liquidated, and what do you want to do? Now, all of a sudden, you basically made sure that you are reaching out to users with the new features so that they can talk about it more. You're also able to retarget users like NFT outbits, for example, so that people are more engaged to your protocol, or they know about new features. And then you're also able to give them information on which they can choose to act before them remembering that, hey, my ENS domain is expiring, or them remembering that, oh, I'm about to be liquidated on Aave or DYDX or wherever, or them saying that, hey, this governance proposal was really important for me, but I missed that. So all of these things now is covered under the Web3 communication era. And that drastically changes the experience. Like, this is the experience of Web2 apps. Like, they will just tell you what you need. They will not require you to do certain steps, or go put something on calendar, or make sure that you're following Discord or Telegram groups to see that you might have something. They will just directly reach out. And that results in a very, very nice UX, which makes users like love your protocol. And I've seen, like, personally, I've seen that with Lens, right? So we have around 2,500 opt-ins on Lens right now, which basically means that they are getting notified with all their profile posts, or when someone is commenting. And very soon they will be able to do like and follow as well, which basically improves the social experience. Like, social fi is just based on that. Even with the loan liquidation part, so I've seen loads of users tweeting about how basically Push enabled that loan liquidation to be prevented, or ENS names. Like, that is one thing I know. Like, my ENS was about to expire, but because of Push and because of notification, I was able to uh, renew it on time without doing anything else. So yeah, I would see like these use cases coming in a lot more as we continue to expand, and as more and more protocols basically get accustomed to the engagement and also with marketing and how to use that in Web3 communication.
Wow. That's a breath of fresh air, because I might be a candidate that wants to understand, if I'm going to get myself involved, I want to know when the new features are going to come out and how it's going to directly impact me and my wallet. So it feels more of like a permissionless notification, but it's also very individualistic. So you can actually perhaps even provide various new forms of analytics that are a little bit more targeted. And it's also less invasive, where I perhaps can even have more privacy when I'm communicating with my audience, since all of this is done on chain. I mean, and you're kind of speaking to the gospel right here, where I'm seeing that there's more engagement involved. And obviously this had to be true with a lot of the applications that were created in today's, Web 2 environment, but maybe they just didn't have the tools, or they didn't know how to build these tools. While with Notifi and with Push, it seems like, hey, it's open source. I can just collect user feeds, and I can do very special add-ons and equip my users with the information that they need. So it kind of goes back to your original thesis. And I mean, I'm just trying to figure out, what were protocols like before? Like, if I wasn't doing this, I mean, how did we even get here to this point? Like, we had to, use Discord only? And, do you see this just being the issue? Like, I mean, obviously Twitter and all these things are great, but I feel like it would be way easier if my MetaMask told me, hey, you're being liquidated, or hey, that NFT that you liked, it's on sale, or blah blah blah. It could be any amount of things. So can you quickly answer me whether or not notifications can also be customed to what a smart contract can tell it? If there's like a specific, say, on-chain quantitative analysis that I want to do, I can have a push notification that can notify me on very special characteristics of the blockchain as well.
So TLDR, yes, and this is something where I feel AI will also play a very big role, because with communication, notification chats, what happens is now you have on-chain data, you have POAP, so you have your identity or profile of a wallet, and now you can basically use those things do so much cooler things. Like if I have some amount of NFTs, I can be recommended by an NFT marketplace about a edition of NFT using AI that I might like it. More than that, I can also be alerted that during this time frame, the NFT would be the cheapest. So now you basically engaged user personalization, and you also made sure that the user lives, they are constantly improving. Same with NFT rebids. You can communicate that NFT is like, I bid on an NFT and it's getting rebid. So all of these cool things will be opened up, including on-chain identity, on-chain reputation, and using that to have targeted, very customized notification or chat or token gated chat or whatever you want.
Wow. So you mentioned a couple of things also before with Lens Protocol getting involved, and they have like a very interesting way that they're using Push. But Paul, I want to bring it back to you and ask you a very poignant question, and see like how Notifi seems to be targeting Web 2 applications and then bringing them to the Web 3 through communication alone. Because, if we're going to have any major impact on traditional systems, we might have to really start considering the way that we're decentralizing social media. But where do you see Notifi involving itself in the greater picture of decentralized communication efforts, and what sort of direct targeted role do you see having the most impact on like users when it comes to like Web3 usability with applications?
Yeah, I mean, the first kind of like big category that we're targeting since we started last April has been onboarding a lot of Web3 native projects. We've been working with them to provide the communication tooling so they can actually reach and manage their communities more effectively than just relying on, the primary channels, which is basically Twitter and Discord, right? So we focus a lot on DeFi projects. We currently have about 41 projects integrated today. So even though our great, grand, like I guess strategy has always been to be like the bridge between Web 2 and Web 3, trying to ferry Web 2 brands and companies into Web 3. We worked backwards and we went to Web 3 communities to see how we can bring their messaging into some of the Web 2 categories today. So we kind of looked at it as more of like a MVP of like, hey, what can we solve today with great PMF and resolve a lot of customer pain points, and provide the tooling for Web3 projects to directly message their Web2 users, because we are all Web2 users, right? We just happen to interact with smart contracts through like UI UX from Web3 projects, but we wanted to solve a basic use case of doing kind of what Harsh was speaking about earlier, which is like governance, liquidations, things that you always expect to be a foundational experience. We wanted to bridge that first. And as we're doing that, going to your earlier point about like insights and marketing, people are starting to realize that, with Web3 and, the concept of identity being on chain, as well as like activities and transactions, you can start to build out these personalized / metadata attributed for segmentation, right? And this is very common in Web2. Like there's data brokers that are out there that aggregate between like different Google, Facebook, Instagram, and what they do is they compile your profile, like you're specifically based on like social security or your address, and they create marketing campaigns for these Web2 companies to communicate to you, right? I do believe that's going to be happening in Web3 because of the ubiquity of the fact that all that data is public, right? Like I could probably find everything that you've been leveraging as a user if I know your wallet ID, right? And that's really powerful for a lot of Web3 projects, of course, because they want to know like, hey, is this a DeFi user? Is this user have more than 5 million liquid or something? Do they love exotic options, right? Are they playing around with different tools? Like what are they doing? But it's actually more important and more like exciting for Web2 companies to ascertain, understand, and leverage that data in their own products that exist today. And if we predict that there's going to be a giant onboarding experience over the next 5 to 10 years, then I think combining the Web2 and Web3 data provides for even better means of understanding your users or your customers, right? And communication is just a delivery engine, right? Communication is how you connect the dots in a sense. But if you see the new wave, I don't know if you guys been keeping track of kind of like the waves of things that are happening in Web3, but insights, analytics, targeting, try to understand your users as a game or a DeFi protocol, and providing that as a service has been exploding in the last 6 months, right? I can name at least like 35 Web3 CRMs, right? And I think we're getting to the cusp of where you're starting to overlay the CRM aspect of your, the wallets that are out there, and you're leveraging tools like communication bridges to actually go and reach out to your users, both from a reactive way. So like a reactive is like, hey, you need to vote, right? Hey, you're about to be liquidated, right? And then there's the other side, which is basically like insights driven. It's like, hey, are you interested in this other vault? Right? I know that you have positions in 3 other ones with this APR. This one's higher, right? So I think people are starting to experiment now with bridging that in. And I think I'm looking at your notes here with the 4337, but I think that's a good segue into kind of what's next. Because account extraction, like all that stuff is going to be able to kind of simplify, right? How the communication and kind of the flywheel effect is going to be operating. It's going to actually exponentially make it quicker, faster, and easier for users to interact with these protocols.
Yeah,
right?
I think that's really the biggest, because I want to get into more technical questions with you guys, because you guys are the pros here, and I really don't quite understand yet what 4337 can actually open up and do for us quite yet. Maybe you guys have a little bit more experience in this, but let's actually jump right to that, because 4337 was such a big thing during ETH Denver, but I think it fell on a lot of deaf ears. There is like this multi-questioned, okay, this is a loaded question, please anyone answer this, but how does SocialFi and wallets and Web3 communication all get wrapped up into 4337, what do you think account abstraction is going to allow us to do from your professional point of view? Because I know it's probably a little bit too early to tell exactly what it's going to be able to do. I have questions such as, is this going to allow me to do like a cross-chain vote? Is this going to allow me to do, votes inside of my wallet before a whole vote, like batch voting, is actually done? Or blah, 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 right? There's so many different things. Or perhaps even zero knowledge proofs getting into the mix where I'm using a circuit before I vote, but it's inside of my wallet. So what do you think is what is your insight on 4337 and how it's going to impact communications with wallets?
I think it's going to put a lot of pressure on builders, right? To actually take the next step to either simplify, make more seamless, right? The user journey of how, like not developers, customers actually interact with the protocols themselves, right? I think the whole concept is to literally like abstract away some of the nitty gritty things that you have to do as a existing user today in Web3, right? And to kind of like obfuscate that to a much better, cleaner experience. Whether it be like, hey, I want to, take a loan out. I want to stake, the remainder of that loan and make sure that I don't ever get liquidated by having an insurance policy all in one click, right? Like it's going to put a lot of like, tools for engineers to see how they can make the user experience much more like delightful, right? And I think that's kind of the biggest call out here. Like I see like, yeah, multi-calls is there for sure. Even things like social, like, how do you want to interact with different like users, right? Do you want to, for instance, like you want to like, create a friend? Do you want to send them some like, some funds? Do you want to pay the gas in the local native currency, right? All this stuff is something that you can bundle together, which wasn't there before, right? So I think as you look at this, like the parallel to this is like, it's like you're like building in like Fortran or something, right? Or Cobalt, and now you have Java, right? And then you have like Ruby on top. So you're trying to basically optimize for some of these functions and building together better functions to make the development, but also the user experience much easier to use. Harsh, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yes. So, I mean, combine all of them. This is about this is about two things. This is about improving Web3 UX, and it's about also making sure that users have more things to do on blockchain, or have more ways to basically own their data or communication rather than just their finances. So SocialFi essentially solves that. But in the broader sense, what 4337 does is, again, going back to this example of MetaMask and my onboarding, right? For me, that was one action is, or one interaction was 10 actions. What 4337 does is, it basically allows a new way by which you can do a smart contract wallet. Like, for example, right now, if I want to do a smart contract wallet, which is also a part of account abstraction, in a way, it means that it's a programmable wallet. So I can program whatever sort of things I want to do. Gnosis Safe is a very good example of that, wherein that wallet can only send or receive funds if two out of three signers, or three out of five signers basically sign that transaction. So this is what smart contract wallets are able to do. Instead of being a wallet which is predefined, you can basically program it. Now, one of the problem is that right now, if you want to create a smart contract wallet, you can only create it with a EOA account, or externally owned account, or an account which has seed phrases, and therefore has all the problems of Web3 UX. What 4337 does is it basically says that this thing will be bundled out, or there will be some bundlers that can batch all these things and can process it on its own. And B, it can even be passed in a way wherein you don't want, or wherein you should not have a EOA account, and still you'll be able to create smart contract wallet. So I'm still reading on it a bit, but what I think it solves is it basically enables social recovery as well. So for example, and this is like, don't quote me on this, but for example, you can log in from Gmail, and that or Gitcoin passport, and that can create a smart contract wallet. So now you don't have to have a EUA, you don't have to have like those seed phrases. You can just do a social recovery, or you can do so much more because now it's a smart contract wallet. This is what EIP 4337 is, at least to me, is about. SocialFi and wallets in this context, it will enable SocialFi users to basically be onboarded as normal users. Like they don't have to care about uh, creating accounts, seed phrases, things like that. So you eliminate all the steps that were the friction point, and now you are giving innovations like creator economies on lens. So you are also giving them financial incentives and innovation. And you're basically making their lives as easy as a Web2 app, which essentially enables or opens the floodgates for all the users, which is all we are talking about. Uh,
So
so,
I
yeah.
have a quick question with this because this is really fascinating with what we're doing over here at BNB is that we have Greenfield, which will have an external account, and this account will live on Greenfield as well. Will it also live on the Binance Smart Chain? And then we have, of course, ZK BNB, which is also a ZNS. It's a different name. So these resource mirrors are interacting with multiple wallets. So I'm assuming that I'm going to have to enable 4337 in order to say, hey, my one wallet is externally attached to these other wallets that are within the BNB ecosystem. So when I make a call that's on the Binance Smart Chain, I want to make a call to Greenfield, or I want to make a call to ZKBNB. Is this sort of what we're thinking when it comes to the way that we're able to make single interactions through just one particular interface? Because I think the thing that makes me the most angry about DeFi is that if I'm going to go and use a layer 2, I'm literally putting everything somewhere else. I'm opening up a different dashboard. I am reopening another account, making a new wallet just to interact with the same thing after I ported my funds through a bridge, which could mistakenly get lost. And I don't have any notification that tells me if my stuff went from point A to point B, destination chain to the other chain. So is this sort of what you're alluding to? Because I see how a smart contractual wallet can allow for me to not only have social recovery, two-factor authentication, and perhaps even recovering my wallet through my Gmail and other things. But is it a way to link accounts with single wallets? If I have multiple wallets, perhaps I have 10, 20 wallets. Is this another possibility that you see opening up with 4337?
Yeah, so because it's a smart contract wallet, you can link multiple wallets. Like you can program the smart contract wallet to be whatever. But 4337, to me, I think it addresses the fact that creation of this smart contract wallet will no longer require you to have a externally owned address or a MetaMask wallet, wherein you basically interact with the transaction to create it. You can basically create it in any arbitrary way. And that, in essence, means that I want a smart contract wallet. I don't have to learn MetaMask or seed phrase or whatever. I can choose whatever way I want to create these smart contract wallets. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, and I think one of the things too is like an underlying kind of like enablement of this is really on the account authority. So you can actually program this and give like permissions or privileges to either different like protocols or different things to enable things like 2FA or whatever, right? But I think that's like the primary, at least my TLDR of kind of like why this is so interesting is that you are now able to determine certain kind of like one-time privileges or like time-based privileges to your wallet to empower it to do a lot of these. I think you had it before as multi-chain or multi-call executions. That's very different from like previously, right? Like it was always like, ad hoc, right? Like you have to authorize each time. You're able to empower any protocol or smart contract to take, kind of control of your keys in a sense, right? So that's kind of like the really big evolution. I mean, like if you think about it, it's like, from a Web2 perspective, it's like it's not too exponentially crazy, but from like the traditional Web3 experiences in the last couple of years, like this is a quite big journey of kind of necessary and evil that needs to be done because it's been hampering a lot of consumer adoption, right? Like for instance, like I think you brought it up. Like if you want to do DeFi, if you want to do staking, you have to like sign like 6 different transactions to sometimes use like Aave, right? In this case, like I think you're giving the authority to Aave as well as like your smart contract wallet to make sure that you can partake in this with a simple click, right? So yeah, I think it is a pretty big I guess expansion into kind of like adopting a better user experience. I don't know what the future is going to look like with kind of like the MetaMasks and the wallet experiences that are out there today. This is something that's definitely problematic for the wallet industry, right? Because like in a way, like you don't really need to have a MetaMask or a Phantom anymore, right? Mostly like I think the evolution of this and Harsh definitely like love to get your thoughts on this too, but the evolution of dApps in the next couple of years, right, look like they're going into more of the self-custody or having their own wallet experience, very similar to like DYDX. And I think with account extraction, I think it empowers them to expedite that investment into better optimizing their own project's UI UX. But we'd love to get see what you guys think about it because it's something that I've been thinking about for the last couple months.
Well, I can share a little of my own thoughts on this. Is that with because I wanted to eventually lead to the question of how we can do private message sharing, because there's going to be a lot of tools and utilities that protocols are going to want to enable their users. But if regulations come through and say, hey, you're basically allowing for anybody to view and scope this data, and some protocols need to make it so that there's private message sharing, or maybe perhaps some of the users' data isn't linked to certain organizations. And we understand that this contract can basically just suss out all of my information since all of it is public and transparent. Do you think that in general, communications needs to be private? Because I think in order for somebody to say lend something, not only are they trying to ensure themselves that their money, Bitcoin, Ethereum, whatever it might be, BNB needs to get from point A to point B, as all traders need to secure their finances from one point to another. They might not want other people to know that, hey, this is about to actually take place, and these are the certain messages and warnings that I'm collecting in order to make certain calls. I might be receiving a lend because I need to do some sort of action on chain. But if somebody sees that message, then they might be taking that action before me. So do you think the privatization of these messages also has to be as private as what ZK technology is enabling for, asset finance? Because right now we can encrypt the asset amount, the asset type, the asset sending and the receiving addresses with various different protocols. But do you think this is going to at all affect the way that we're doing message passing on chain? Do you think there's going to have to be a way to do private message passing for DAOs or for any DeFi protocol in the future?
I mean, see, of course, whenever you're talking about communication, like if you're talking about chat, group chat, notifications, or any sort of communication, you definitely need to have both, right? You need to make sure that communications are encrypted because that's kind of preferred. So there are two ways of looking at it, and Push basically supports both ways. The first way is like if it's a blockchain data, which is already available or calculatable, chances are you don't need encryption in that. So when you're talking about loan liquidations, right? You don't want to notify the user when loans are liquidated. Like that's just sad. You want to basically notify them before the loans are liquidated, which basically depends on health factor in most of the scenario. Which basically means this is not a smart contract event. It's an off-chain event, and what you can do is like you can basically send this notification out as encrypted or as non-encrypted as you want to. But because this is a public calculatable event, it won't matter. But having said that, like encrypted notifications, where it will probably matter is probably when OTPs come into the system, or when we have wallet to wallet video calls, which is something that we are working on as well. Over there, like private encryption is definitely there, or even wallet to wallet chat, which we have launched, like push chat. Over there, everything is encrypted because you don't want wallet to wallet messaging to be non encrypted, like WhatsApp is encrypted, Telegram is, and so on and so forth. So, to answer the question, I think it's two-layered question. Like one is that there is this public data that is attached to your wallet, and this is visible in entire all across the chain. Over there, you don't need encrypted form of notifications. And there will be some things, and there are some things wherein you need encrypted form of notifications. So as a protocol, you need to basically support all of it, like especially as a middleware protocol, whether it's on-chain, off-chain, whether it's smart contract, DApp protocol, encrypted, non-encrypted at times. You just need to make sure that you provide the tools to developers, no matter what they are building, that their use case is handled. And that is what a protocol does, right? A protocol makes sure that as long as you are following guidelines, you are able to interact with protocol and you are able to build on top of it. Uh, so yeah, TLDR encryption is definitely very important, especially in chat and video and so on and so forth. For notification, like public wallet address with public blockchain data, maybe they don't need encryption. But yeah, for all other means, they definitely need encryption. And uh, I mean, all communication protocols, I think they follow this, that everything needs to be secure, everything needs to be encrypted. And more than that, if you want like a wallet, if you want to even send information after a wallet address to everyone else or onto any other platform, you should be able to do that. And I think all of us, like Paul, me, whoever is in the communication sector, they are probably trying to follow the best industry guidelines in this aspect.
I see. So I think that would in general definitely bring us to that next pinnacle point, because we were talking in the beginning that there are these like pitfalls, there's these pain points, and I feel like one of these are one of those undisclosed pain points that many people may or may not see as a inhibitor to kind of moving forward. And I know that like Telegram and versus Signal, there's this like direct reason why people are choosing Signal over Telegram because of this one reason alone. So I think if we can offer these tools where these use cases sit right in between an off-chain to an on-chain message, and perhaps there are new and exciting protocols that can actually come in and perhaps notify me when a loan is going to get liquidated, but it wants to tell me in a private manner to the actual people who have lent to that pool. Well, I don't need to necessarily know who are the lenders, but I do need to notify the people, hey, you're about to get liquidated, but no one needs to know exactly who you are. And I think that would be like a pivotal moment where people start to see, oh, this isn't just a financial application. This is like a very individualistic financial application that I can see kind of expanding much further, and perhaps could even include traditional finance to decentralized financing, where they start looking at EVM as a potential use case for their backend to settle these agreements, because they have this level of communication that is both either public and private. And then I see all the other use cases for marketers and agencies to kind of step in, where just because you don't need to have everything be privatized, I can actually create new economies using public information and creating these new forms of analytics. So this is all really cool, guys. I think in general, we went over a lot of the rhymes and reasons of what communication really is going to do and enable applications for the future of what they're going to kind of transition and turn into. I especially see this with games and potentially how even NPC bots are going to talk to me because they see some on-chain analytics, something's going on, and they got to tell me like, yo, Uniswap just went under, and then they have to tell me these things, and that might never happen, but it'd be cool if something were to gamify this, and I think people would start to see the actual intent and use case of this stuff. So we went over everything. Now I want to get into the technicals. I want to understand from a BNB developer's perspective how we can implement your protocol into their application so that they can kind of expect, so that they know what to expect once they actually do this process. So Notifi, Paul, can you run me through your process of what the integration, the steps to integration looks like for a BNB developer right now to use Notifi?
Yeah, so we offer SDK and APIs for basically developers to do two use cases, whether it be off-chain or on-chain, eventing monitoring and notifications. It's pretty much the same kind of onboarding experience for them. So in terms of like where the two use cases we differ on is whether it be observing a smart contract for a event or behavior, such as like a liquidation or say a governance proposal, they can leverage our SDK product to build out into their application experience embedded notification and alerting experiences that are literally like part of the user journey itself. Otherwise, we do have another product they can leverage to kind of build that into our platform. It's called the Hub. So they can kind of either indicate the events or smart contracts, and it could trigger from our rules engine alerting and reporting, alerting and notification experiences according to the preferences of the user itself.
Awesome. So I see this as one for observing the actual state of these contracts and the other one for more of like a security purpose, where if I am under attack or under siege, there might be a very specific reason to use the hub to indicate to my users like, hey, in case of failure, this is a very fast way for the development team and for the community to kind of get a notification from them. So it all involves event monitoring. So I like this on and off chain. Can you really quick distinguish the difference between this? Like, what's the difference between this off chain and this on chain module? Is there any difference between these?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, the on-chain is basically like, hey, we listen to a smart contract or a different layer one, because we support about 13 chains at this point. So basically, you can create whatever rules you want for us to monitor or to event off of. The off-chain is like an API. You can call our API to basically push a communication notification to your users directly. Therefore, you don't need to have an on-chain monitoring component to it. We call it broadcast.
Broadcast. And that's, so sorry, broadcast is your off-chain module?
Off-chain, yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, now I start to.
Oh, no worries. Yeah.
So this, so that's pretty interesting, and developers can get involved with actually making these new rules for Notifi. But does it, is it specifically with the way that events are monitored with contracts? Can it also be with like proxy contracts as well for redundancy attacks? Like, what's your thoughts on on some of this? If somebody like goes to a hackathon, they're like, oh, I want to deliver a new way to notify users. How can a developer come to Notifi to kind of implement new sorts of event contracts or event-based contracts?
Yeah, so if there's anything on-chain with our on-chain monitoring, you can actually kind of instrument that, and we can detect, monitor on your behalf. So anything that's literally on the blockchain, we can go ahead and use as kind of a source material.
Awesome. And I'm assuming it's pretty straightforward. So with the actual integrating this SDK, is there different packages? Is it? I'm assuming it's all in JavaScript, or are there other SDKs as well for other sorts of builds as well?
Yeah, we mean there's a couple different packages, but on the front end, there's a React component card that we provide or view. I think Vue is getting a little like it's weird. Vue is still like kind of relevant. I don't know if Harsh you've been seeing that too, but we see like maybe like 1 out of 5 projects have Vue, so we decided to kind of provide some support for that. But I think where we kind of like factor in a lot is that we do a lot of the back end monitoring, eventing, and notification services, but we also provide a front end component where you want to embed that user experience inside your project itself and offer a native kind of like communication sign up. And that's where I think a lot of like the Web 2 side of things is kind of like more familiar with is that people go to say like a DeFi protocol and they want to sign up for liquidation alerts directly on that page, right?
Brilliant. Okay, that's super cool. And I think that sums it up pretty well. I see that it's this on and off chain event monitoring, and I can see how I can utilize this with a React or Vue into a front end to kind of get this like native sign off feature. Now, I love it, and I think BNB developers are going to have a lot of fun with exploring with this, and that's really the whole point, is to try to create innovative applications. And now I know that Push recently came over to BNB, and that was probably a really big decision between you and your team. So I want to first really quickly ask you, what was the decision behind going to BNB? And how do you see BNB developers integrating push notifications with the other ecosystems that you're also a part of? Because I know that EPNS, or now is known as Push, was a part of like a huge portal of networks. So what can a BNB developer kind of expect when it comes to communicating with other networks or even on the BNB network? What's your thoughts on that?
So, I mean, why BNB? So there are two things which we basically see when we are going on a different network. The first thing that we do is we love our community. Like, we really love them. They basically helped us get started, even with the Gitcoin grants round that we raised, and then the seed and series and so on. So we usually ask them like, what chain do you want us to go next? And we feel this is a very clever way to crowdsource the data as well, because A, you're making sure that the community is getting involved, and B, whatever products they're using the most, they're probably going to say that, right? So it saves some of research from our end as well. The other thing is, of course, research driven, wherein we see innovations or users, and where they are basically growing or growing a lot. So both of those things got tick marked for BNB. So the question was not if we are coming, the question was when we are coming on BNB. And yeah, I think the launch and the response was super massive. So we couldn't be more happier. Also, BNB is kind of like family to us as well. Uh, all right. So, how BNB developers can use Push? So, or what projects Push has. So, I think we have over 700 integrations now. Um, Around 150 of them are like top protocols of the Ethereum ecosystem or the Polygon, and now the BNB ecosystem as well. So if you're a developer, like the best place to start is or docs.push.org. Uh, we have essentially 4 products or 3 products, and the other one is upcoming. The first is push notifications. The second is push chat, which is wallet to wallet DMs. The third is group chat or token gated or DAO gated chat, which means that, if you're a DAO or if you want to create your own Web3 Discord or Discourse or so on, you can basically utilize the group chat feature to token gate, NFT gate, transaction gate it, and now you have a Web3 native way. The way to integrate, it's very simple. Like you can do it on chain, off chain, like whatever way you want to do it, that is supported. If you want to do it from smart contract, that's supported. If you want to do it from dApp, that's supported. If you want to do it from a server or a backend, which means that you're probably doing off-chain things, that's supported as well. The logic depends on you. So you can basically like the vision or what we believe is that you as a user or you as a developer will know your app and your users the most. So you can basically deliver whatever sort of logic you want, or you can design whatever sort of logic you need, and you can pick whatever medium, like smart contract, subgraph, backend, whatever, and we'll make sure that it reaches to the user. In case you want to build your own logic, as I said, like docs.push.org, you can see how to build it on smart contract, 2 lines of code, subgraph, 10 lines or so of code. If you want to do it from backend, we have something called Scaffold Framework or Showrunner Scaffold Framework, which basically just gives you all the things that you want if you want to monitor a smart contract, or if you want to do a cron job, or if you want to monitor a graph, or even if you want to do Web2 related stuff or build basically anything on top of it. That's your call. Our team is there to help, and we have documented all of this in a live workshop as well. When it comes to delivering notifications, we have delivery nodes, which basically means that your mobile app or your crypto wallet or your tab can show these notifications as well. But more than that, you can also use that to essentially tap into the notifications that are coming for a wallet address. And then you can use it to basically also send it out to email or Telegram or whatever way you want. Again, documented in docs.push.org. So yeah, that's push notification. Chat, same thing. We have the SDK. It's available across all EVM, like push chat as a SDK. So just go ahead and whatever you want to do with it, whether you want to create a DAO, whether you want to create DMs, whether you want to create anything else, you can do that. Group chat is the third offering that I spoke about as well. And the fourth offering is video call, which is coming like really, really soon. So you can utilize that as well.
Whoa, wait. So I'm just trying to distinguish the difference really quick between push chat and DAO gating. Is it the same feature or is it like two different features?
So two different features, and yeah. So basically, Push is a user-centric protocol, which basically means that the user opts in for these notification or for these chat requests, and only then the intrusive part of notification is actually activated, which means that you cannot be spammed. The difference between push chat and group chat is basically that push chat is a wallet to wallet chat, right? And group chat is essentially that you can create a group and you can token gate that group or message gate that group or do several type of gating. So for example, if you're an NFT community, you might basically say that I want to NFT gate this group. So only the wallets that have this NFT will be able to join. So all of a sudden you have your own Web3 native chat. You can also message gate it. I think that's coming like in 2 weeks or so, which basically means that you can say that if you have one NFT or this amount of tokens, only then you can send message inside the group. So basically you can message gate. You can transaction gate it as well. So basically, if you made a transaction to something, only then you are able to talk. And of course, you can token gate it. So that's why we call it like Book chat or DAO chat. And it's like a completely different feature because it opens up so many possibilities of communication.
Wow. So I see. So I see that there could also be a correlation where a DAO or a DeFi builder or somebody wants to actually make use of both. Perhaps I wanted to do some really particular alert function with Notifi, but then I also want to make sure that those alert functions are token gated through the actual message portal, so that yes, everyone who has a particular asset inside of a lending pool, if it's about to get liquidated, it's like, oh, I get a Notifi notification that says, oh, me particularly, I'm gonna be liquidated, but not everyone actually gets that notification. It might just be individualistic to me. And there might be some weird NFT derivative platform that needs this very, very specific use case. So there's nothing stopping me, because it seems like it has a lot of the same ideas kind of backing up both. And I see how Lens Subgraph is using this, and then you're making a huge use of scaffold, a scaffold that allows you to monitor how these wallets are interacting with one another, and they can also interact with Telegram and Gmail and Discord. So there's lots of stuff here, and I think looking at it from like a wide point of view, My big question to you was like, how did you guys decide to vote to come to BNB using a DAO?
Well, I think for us, like, we don't have a DAO. Mostly it's been from customer requests. So kind of like what Harsh said, community slash, in this case, some like customers, kind of ask and guide us from a product strategy perspective. So coming to BNB for us was more like, hey, we need to support some of these customers that have reached out to us and they need our support on this chain. So therefore, let's go ahead and, expand. But yeah, we don't have a DAO yet.
What do you think is the biggest
guess.
need on BNB though right now with Notifi? Is it security based? Is it DAO based? Is it DeFi based? From your professional opinion, what is it that BNB users typically needed the most right now?
I think the two things that we're pretty excited about is definitely on a DeFi track, right? Making better experiences for the users that want to interact with DeFi, like protocols and smart contracts. And two is really around the SocialFi aspect of it, in preparation for, I think, what most people will see is like for the oncoming onslaught of games for the BNB chain. So I think for kind of like if we're going to look at this from a piecemeal perspective, I do see captivating the early like user adoption on DeFi is definitely a lot of like it's pretty clear. Socialifying games is kind of like what we're really excited about, and I think where the industry is excited about, and I think it kind of correlates pretty well with the overarching kind of theme that BNB has been pushing for the last couple months too.
Man, that is cool. Yeah, we're pushing it super hard on the GameFi aspect. We're trying to kind of slowly distinguish the difference between like how games shouldn't be considered as like gambling rigs or something like this. There's like I don't need to be notified that I lost all my money when I'm playing the game
or maybe you do. Maybe you should stop playing a game where you're losing money.
Well, there's those betting apps like there's the ones like the NBA All Stars or something where people bet on actual like the outcomes of a game. Like I just lost all my money and I get a notification that says, "Hey, you just lost all of your money." I mean, I might need to be shown that, but that might just be rubbing in the dirt a little bit harder. But
Maybe you need to notified when you lose like 20% of your money, and then it's up to you.
all right, guys. So now I know that Notify and Push are designed so I can lose more sleep. Thank you. No, I'm kidding. So this is super sick, guys. I love it. But Harsh, I'm curious. Like, is it the decisions? I know that there is the PUSH-DAO, but do they also use Push to notifying each other how they're going to communicate to make that next decision? What's that experience been like?
So that's basically what you said. We basically do a DAO consensus, though not a official voting consensus, because I think the decision of coming to blockchain ecosystem needs all community members, not just holders of your token, right? So that's why we do it like we do it across all our community, which is around 150K plus now. And yeah, I mean, asking community is the best thing you can do in a Web3 product, because you're not building the Web3 product based on your intuition. You're essentially building it for them. And eventually you are going to hand it to them, like any permissionless protocol needs to do that. And that's where community comes in really, really handy. And they're usually very spot on, like what sort of things you should go for next. In fact, like mathematically, it's also proven. Like that's why democracies work. So yeah. One of the key things that we do is we basically ask the community that question, and the answer kind of basically tells us that okay, these are the blockchains that we want to target on, and after that is just a matter of making sure that whenever we are going to that blockchain, we are essentially going over there with all the tools that are designed to help the devs, like whatever they want to build, as you said, like. So like these are communication primitives like chat, notification, video calls. So whatever you want to build, like the developer should decide what they want to build and how they want to do it. So if they want to build an AI chatbot on PuSH, they should be able to do it no matter the restrictions. If they want to do it from smart contract, that should be possible. So all of these things is what you need to basically aim for. And once you do that, usually the community makes sure that your protocol becomes successful, which is what with BNB or even Ethereum and Bitcoin and so on and so forth.
So this is a good question now. It's that it sounds like you are having so many votes, or potentially even like a lot of people who are communicating with one particular decision, and their messages might be coming from Discord or Telegram or their emails or even on chain. So am I assuming correctly that the way that like Web3 communications can really enhance the overall voters experience when it comes to aggregating so many different portals of knowledge? If it's a yes or a no question, that's still information. If that yes or a no is done across so many different apparatuses, is it that a Web3 notification, Notifi/push protocol is the purpose for us to find a way to get all of these different interfaces to kind of be in a single interface? So if somebody wants to vote on Discord because they hate using Telegram, or vice versa, or maybe they want to do all their voting on chain directly, is it that we can take all of these different portals and have a single voice from all of these different apparatuses from across the internet? Is that what these protocols are allowing for us to do?
I mean, I think eventually, if you really like look at like end state, I think having a simplified, unified like user experience to perform execution, right, is what people always kind of default to, right? They want to be able to do things from the fingertips of whatever preferred application, protocol, or just app in general that they want to do it in. Like people prefer, say, it's actually a pretty common kind of question that I usually ask people, but because everyone's like response is different, but it's like if you were to centralize your messages and notifications, which application, Web 2 or Web 3, would you choose? And people pick like Discord or Twitter, email, SMS. Everyone has their own preferences, right? And I think it's important to kind of understand that. Because I think the next logical kind of extension of once you centralize your notifications to your preferred methods is then now how do you want to interact with the next execution layer, right? Because remember, like notifications, they're like more like a prompt, right? Something happened, right? Therefore, I'm giving you this information. What do you want to do with it, right? And we see like folks like people in Solana building a phone to kind of like encapsulate everything in one place so that you can make it a little bit more easier to execute kind of the smart contract interactions. But I think if you look at it 5-10 years from now, like it's going to be more of like a mainstream thing. It's like today, like why does Facebook Messenger have a payment function built into it, right? Not that people are using it, but it's definitely no one built it, right? But I think people are looking for that single sign-on, that simplicity of use, because I think that's going to help bridge the next step, interacting with the blockchain a lot more easier for the next generation than it is for folks like us, right?
That was beautifully put. Thank you for that response too. And I think the way that you kind of summarize the future with not looking too far ahead, I think will give people like the right assumption of what needs to be built and how it's going to have to kind of iterate over time to get there. So in terms of your best advice on iterating and getting to that ultimatum where we have like this very single one-on-one experience. I don't want to say we're trying to build a bunch of WeChats, but I am saying that people do want to unify the experience of what their DAO and where their DAO is located, because we are building decentralized autonomous organizations. So what is the preferred stack? If you're going to tell a developer today working on BNB, what do they got to know? What sets of tools and technologies or languages do they have to prepare themselves with in order to build with your protocol or build with these existing technologies to create this very DAO Web3 unified communication experience with the world? What would be your advice?
Yeah, I mean, I think my advice would be, I think today, right, you see a lot of builders, and they're focusing on optimizing their application protocol, right? And I think the captivated users that exist today, are always going to these protocols and applications to interact with it from a daily perspective. It's like the worst case is like you keep hitting refresh on a project, right? Which I think a lot of us do, right? We constantly always kind of like captivated by the fact that we're in front of our computers and only one click away. I think it's too early to kind of think about, which interaction layer is going to win over long term, or what's like the predominant one that's going to be, still here in like a year or two. I think the best way to do it is build the communities where your communities live today, right? Whether it be Discord, whether it be on your application itself, or whether it be like Reddit or something, right? Like optimize for where your community exists today and build that experience to be like at the upper like epitome of like excellence, right? Focus on that, right? And then as time goes by, right, you can kind of implement technology and different types of like tools to better enhance it. But I think serve your customer today, right? Solve for the big pain points. And I think as we go over like time, then you can kind of innovate a little bit more. And you can see kind of the industry evolving, right? With account extraction, with all these things that are coming out. We're starting to get the signal that, user experience and user optimization is important. However, I think it's only like a fraction of the equation because you still have to resolve for customer pain points today in the near term, right? So that's kind of my advice. Harsh, take it from
Yeah.
here. Yeah.
Sure. So yeah, that's a very interesting question, like the unified approach. I mean, I would I would basically go the other way over here. What I feel is that essentially Web3 was started with the fact that there's something which is wrong in some of the Web2 things that we do. For example, like owning your account data, or not your keys, not your coins. You can extend that to not your keys, not your identity, or not your keys, not your social, which is what we are seeing now. And by that extension, it should be not your keys and not your communication, because all of these things are getting tied to your wallet or your identity, and you should be able to move along with it. So, with that, I know that wallet communication is definitely a must. Having said that, I do feel that once a wallet communication is done, after that, it's up to the developers, like how they want to, or what they want to do. And that is why, like, Push basically offers delivery nodes to make sure that if they want to utilize Web 2.5 gateways, they are able to do that. And this is essentially the issue over here. Like, developers, they will need to pick based on their platform. So, for example, OpenSea might want to enable emails, or ENS might not want to enable any doxing information. And that should be left up to the developers, because then you then you are fostering innovations, right? They can decide exactly what they want, and all of a sudden, someone will crack that formula. Though at the very baseline, I do know that things need to flow to your wallets, just because your wallet becomes your identity, and you need to basically make sure that when you're moving your wallet or doing anything, you're carrying that identity and data with you.
Wow. And I think both of you guys kind of touch on the ethos of why it even matters to begin with, which is that you are trying to really get in touch and have a more one-on-one and personal relationship with where the community starts and ends. But it also, what you're touching on, Harsh, is that it comes down to the ownership and the control of that data and the way that you're then being perceived or valued or all these different things, because Web3 can mean so many different things. It can mean reputation, it can mean identity, it can mean NFT, it can mean game, it can mean anything, because it is still the internet. But we have Web3 because of this idea of ownership and this idea of I control what I get to do online and other people cannot tell me what to do and what not to do. And the developer really kind of takes control of these ideas and builds towards what their communities need at the end of the day. They're building towards that community. So as long, from what I'm hearing, as long as these developers out here trying to, make a buck, they're not going to make anything if they're not listening to their community and if they're not able to better communicate with that community. And it doesn't have to be a personal relationship. It just needs to be known that I am listening to you. And what better way of doing that other than using these protocols that we have here, right? I don't see another way of doing it in the Web3. So I'm just glad that you guys have actually taken it upon yourselves to even start with this. So my last question of the day before we end this off, we're almost 5 minutes over time, but I want to get one more question in, is why? The big question is why care about this? Like, my actual question is, why do you care about this? Because I know why I care. I got into this because a community brought me in and they loved my trees of an NFT picture. It was a tree and I was trying to plant trees and it was so ridiculous. But there was a community that was like, oh my God, I want to sell these trees and look at this. And if only I had a way of communicating my message of why I was selling these trees is so I can end up on Twitch. But there was no way for me to communicate, hey, Dylan's live stream of him planting a tree for every tree that was sold on the Web3. No one got that message. No one was able to get that message. There was no notification. There was nothing like this. I wish that there was. And that way I can create this really interpersonal relationship between myself and my community that I was trying to establish. But I realized at that point that there was a barrier to entry. So that's why I care. I see the value, the importance of this. But how do you guys see it? What initially sparked your fire to start this initial journey when you started it? Paul, if you wanted to take it away.
Sure. I mean, I think I want to speak for Harsh too, but I think in generally, there's not many opportunities to be at the forefront of unlocking the next mass adoption to a technology, right? It happens very rarely in our lives, right? And I think we are at the cusp of a very mass unlock, right? And being at the core infrastructure to enable that adoption is super exciting, at least to me, and I think everyone here in this industry. And I think that's like the major kind of like call to action, at least that I saw when I was leaving my Web 2 life was I could have like I think the options I had was like, do I go join like TikTok because they're unlocking millions of users, or do I do something crazy, right? And I think that's what the reality is that like you rarely have a opportunity to work on something that could unlock the next billion users to some nascent technology, right? That's the main reason why I decided to jump into it. Why I decided to do things around like messaging, communication infrastructure was so my co-founder and I actually built out the messaging services, streaming services for Oracle Cloud infrastructure. So we had a little bit of affinity towards building and shipping something that was in our kind of wheelhouse of experience. And we all knew it was important, right? Because it was a critical piece of infrastructure that I think most people kind of overlook, right? And if you look at kind of Web3 today, most of the developers have overlooked it, right? So I think we saw that there was an opportunity to leverage our expertise, dial into something that people don't really always, gravitate towards, right, or understand, and help, kind of enable the rest of the Web3 adoption to actually take place, right? Picks and shovels in a sense, right? Like I think between like us, like communication infrastructure providers, like Oracle providers, even like like RPC node infrastructure providers, I think we're always like the lost children, right? Like no one really knows what we do, right? They just know that they need to use something, right, in order to facilitate their application or protocol experience to actually work. So it's always one of those really cool things where, especially from a B2B side, you provide your product that serves like thousands or hundreds of thousands of customers, right? Even though you have a smaller list of customers, but you facilitate a lot of their customers to enjoy their experience. So I think that's always been something that's been gravitated towards in my past. I love the B2B2C space. Like when AWS goes down, it takes down half the world, right? That's really cool from a technology perspective, and I think it's one of those things that people don't really think about, but it impacts everyone, and it's a matter of like, do I work on one protocol, one project, one DeFi protocol, or should I power like 80 of them, right? And that's kind of what gravitated towards us.
Wow. That's some
Sure.
seriousness. I love that, Paul. Thank you. Yeah, Harsh, what's your
Sure.
what's the story of
That,
a
that
life?
Yeah, so I like Paul's story as well. For me, this was very personal, and it was kind of like a full circle because decade like a decade ago, I was working in mobile apps and games, and that was when I saw notifications come into the fold. That was 2009, uh, and fortunately, I was in that position where I could learn about the architecture a lot. Like there was no abstraction, and Apple usually sucked that developer experience back then. So you had to do everything on your own. So you got to learn so many parts of notification. Like it's so complex and it's very easy for people to perceive. But yeah, I got to learn that. And then I saw after notifications, WhatsApp and chat came in and how that changed the world. And then I saw FaceTime video call, which again relies on notification, but not many people know that. But that changed the world. So yeah, I was kinda in the middle of all those things, was able to absorb those things out. And there comes this 2020, and I'm trying some of the protocols out, and my loan got liquidated. And this was a personal problem because at that point of time, I was like, wow, this is like pre 2009. Like, this is the era of Orkut. If people even remember Orkut, wherein you go and you refresh, and all of a sudden you're sleeping and everything is gone. And that's when I realized like Web3 needed notifications, and someone had to take that step. So I think that is when we named EPNS, or Ethereum Push Notification Service, because we wanted to first make sure that we are battle tested, and the community also supported us from Ethereum. So we wanted to make sure that there's a homage to it. And yeah, fun fact, it was named after Apple Push Notification Service, which is the middleware for Web2 for everything. So that is what the origin of EPNS was. Of course, in due time, we realized that this is so much bigger than just the Ethereum ecosystem. Like the entire Web3 needs to do it, and it should be done in a way where multiple wallets can be done under the same identity. And it should not even matter if you're on an EVM chain or non-EVM chain or anywhere else. Like even if you're on Bitcoin network, a wallet of Bitcoin should be able to communicate to a wallet of BNB, and vice versa, even a protocol. And even crypto wallets, they should be able to support all these communication. So that was a big vision that we embarked upon. Um, and yeah, that's why I say like it was a really personal problem because I got frustrated with the current state of thing, and I was like, no, this can be done really in a better way. And that's how EPNS or push got started.
Wow. That I see both of your stories as like the entrepreneurial journey of taking the fattest risk and actually going with it, and you're still going with it. And I actually see how, look at this, I mean, how crazy is it is that, look at the times right now with 4337 coming out, the importance of SocialFi coming out, and the absolute need and necessity for making usability more important now more than ever, because that's the only big question in crypto, and you guys are primed and ready. I feel like that's exciting. Personally, if I was in your shoes, that's really cool. And I think this is going to meet the needs and also open up a lot of questions for BNB developers, because you're right, we're in the middle of building games. building new applications, new cross-chain communication, voting apps. We got our Zero to Hero hackathon, and a lot of people are going to want to learn and understand how they can make their applications stand out. And I think by using one of their options here, there's a plethora of options that both of you have stated. And I love this idea of off-chain communication because personally, I get to start maybe thinking about how I communicate to a game and the way that I can take a message on chain and put it into a game that's running in a server off chain. And perhaps that runs some sort of script. And Unreal came out with the verse language that takes in these messages. So who knows, guys? Literally the opportunities and the potential nuance of what Web3 integrating with Web2 is going to start doing, because we always say, oh, we got to go from Web2 to Web3. I think it could be the other way around right here, where we start doing it in the opposite direction, and there's innovations that we can do to Web2. And I think that's what's going to bridge this gap together, and you guys are at the forefront of this. So thank you so much.
Yeah, exciting. Looking forward to it.
Super sick. Yeah, guys, so that's it from our end. This was the Bread and Butter podcast. This is episode 4, I believe, and this is going to come out in the weeks to come. So thank you so much for participating. Is there any last words? Where can we find you? Where can they find you on Discord or all these things? Or should they contact you through the Web3? What's your preference?
Good call, man. You can find me at just Twitter, one Paul Kim, or Notifi Network. We're pretty much engaged there, or our Discord server, of course, as well. But yeah,
solid.
Cool. So yeah, guys, Twitter, if you want to follow or do a one-way communication or notification, so just follow me at Harsh Rajat. If you want two-way communication, then yeah, Discord. Best way is go to push.org, scroll all the way down, and you can see all the links, so you can pick and choose. We are going to be launching dynamic URLs for DM very soon, and after that, you can just DM me directly on app.push.org.
Or they can reach out to you on your wallet address, right? So they can reach out to me on chaoticbeauty.bnb or something, or .eth, right? That's how it works?
Yeah. So that's why I said app.push.org /harshr.eth.
That's so sick. See, it all comes together. Just don't give away your wallet address, right? So mine is 0x2. No. None of that anymore. All right, cool, guys. Thank you so much. I hope you have a good rest of your day. Thank you for listening in. Go follow these guys and take care. See you all later.
Thanks for having us. Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.